With over 150 million units sold worldwide in its lifetime, the PlayStation 2 long ago secured its place in history as one of the most successful, influential and beloved consoles of all time. As Sony's Box of Delights celebrates its 18th birthday, what better time to take a look back at some of the greatest titles to have graced the console. Before we begin, here's a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button and the bell to keep up to date with all our awesome gaming news, reviews and features. Without further ado, we present the top 10 PlayStation 2 games of all time. Number 10. Gran Turismo 4. Gran Turismo 4 was one of the best looking games of its generation, with a graphical flair and attention to detail that blew our minds back in the day. If we're being honest, it still kind of holds up. The gameplay was tight, smooth, and oh so responsive. Races were challenging but never unfair, and the tracks and cars were all put together with such an obvious amount of love and care. With over 700 cars to choose from and tune however you saw fit, Gran Turismo 4 remains the definitive racing game of the PS2 era. Immersive, thrilling, and so much fun to play. Number 9. Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus remains an absolute and undisputed masterpiece. Team Ico's tragic tale is a stunning lesson in emergent storytelling and immersive game design. Thundering across a bleak yet beautiful, desolate landscape on the back of your trusty steed as you embark on a personal mission to destroy a number of beautiful, fearsome giants, made for one of the most unrelentingly depressing journeys in gaming. If you didn't experience a pang of guilt with every Colossus you took down, then there might be something wrong with you. Never before has a game so consistently made me feel like scum for playing it. The fact that it can do this but still continue to push the player forward is nothing short of incredible. Number 8. Ratchet & Clank. The PS2 is home to many Ratchet & Clank games, but for sheer nostalgic value, we have to give this spot to the one that started it all. Insomniac Games, who had previously given us Spyro and would later go on to give us Spider-Man PS4, created a glorious 3D platformer to rival Mario himself. Ratchet & Clank introduced us to a bright, colourful world stuffed with anarchic humour and sci-fi parody. The weapons were hilariously over the top, and helped the series stand apart from other platform games of the time. Meanwhile, the massive levels were packed with details, secrets to find, and collectibles to hunt. Ratchet & Clank is as close to genuine platforming gold as you can get. Number 7. Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 remains the absolute best the franchise has to offer, and a world-class example of how to do a psychological horror game properly. An atmosphere of unrelenting suspense permeates the entire game, as players are forced to fend off a gauntlet of genuinely grotesque creations and scenarios, touching on everything from mental illness to child abuse in ways that never felt tacky or exploitative. Let's not forget, this was the game that introduced the world to Pyramid Head, an enduring horror icon. It's also the game that made us watch Pyramid Head have sex with a mannequin. So there's that too. Number 6. Jak III. In between Crash Bandicoot and Uncharted, Naughty Dog gave the world Jak and Daxter, a franchise which is frankly long overdue a revival. Jak III, the third game in the series if you can believe it, was a far cry from the first Jak and Daxter game, which was basically a really good Super Mario 64 clone. In this third installment, players explored a dystopian open world full of intense action platforming that was remarkably well polished for the time. You have to remember that this was before open world games were commonplace, so the amount of things to see and do really was astounding to kids at the time. While Jak III was a more grown-up take on the franchise that felt much more at home on the PlayStation 2, it never truly lost its irreverent sense of humour or playfulness, and that's why we love it so much. Number 5. Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X was the first in the franchise to come to PlayStation 2, and after Square Enix delivered a streak of perfect Final Fantasy titles on the original PlayStation, the pressure was very much on for them to deliver with number 10. Thankfully, Final Fantasy X offered an epic, gorgeous adventure that embraced the old but also welcomed in the new. Not everything about it worked. Nobody on the planet likes Blitzball, for example, but for the most part it was a worthy addition to the canon, with a fully voice-acted story packed with twists, turns, and unforgettable character moments. Number 4. Devil May Cry 3. There's no game on the PS2 that will test your button mashing finesse quite like Devil May Cry 3. Less of a game and more of a brutal bloody dance in which the only way out is to shoot, stab, dodge and kill until there's nothing left to shoot, stab, dodge and kill. If Devil May Cry 2 was a disappointing sequel to a promising debut, Devil May Cry 3 is the game that finally delivered on the promise of the original. It's a tight, rewarding but endlessly unforgiving game that would happily punish you for the slightest mistakes. Some people might call it the Dark Souls of the PS2 era. I'm not one of those people, but it wouldn't be the craziest comparison to make. Number 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. There are those who would argue that Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is the very best the franchise has to offer, and I'd find it pretty hard to disagree, to be honest. Snake Eater is, in so many ways, the greatest espionage video game of all time. A 1960s Cold War era prequel that starred Solid Snake's dad, Naked Snake, as he fought to survive in a vast jungle and unravel the truth behind a typical Kojima yarn, full of twists and turns. The stealth gameplay was incredible, and the jungle survival added a whole new element of immersion. Players had to manage camouflage, hunt and kill animals for food, and perform field surgery to heal wounds. Snake Eater is, in many ways, the most grounded and gritty Metal Gear game, and it takes advantage of its tense jungle setting in such stunning fashion. It truly is a game unlike any other. Number 2. God of War 2. Released in the dying days of the PlayStation 2, the first sequel to God of War blew absolutely everyone's mind by throwing out an absolute stunner of a game. One that pushed the aging hardware to its absolute limits in a game that nonchalantly coughed up one epic cinematic boss fight after another. Bigger, bloodier, and altogether more gruesome than its predecessor. God of War 2 continued Kratos' epic quest for revenge, and even introduced a slew of new abilities, such as the power to swing across grapple points, Spider-Man style, and even glide using wings that were, borrowed from Icarus? With Kratos now living life as a single dad that you might actually be able to have sympathy for, it's always good to remember that once upon a time, he was an angry murderous jerk, and he was really, really good at it. Number 1. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. GTA San Andreas is one of the most important games in the world to an entire generation, and certainly the very best game you can play on the PS2. For many of us, it was the first 18-rated game we ever managed to get our hands on. It was also the first truly open-world title that many of us had ever experienced, and the sheer size and scale of the thing, from Grove Street to Bone County, was simply mind-blowing. Rockstar crafted a stunning world that felt truly alive. It really did have it all, from radio stations packed with tunes to working traffic that we've all driven in normally at some point, from violent turf wars on the streets to stealing a jetpack from Area 51, because why not? San Andreas gave us a giant interactive playground in which to lose ourselves and sink countless hours in as we combed every nook and cranny of its world for secrets and new things to do. For the weekends spent locked away playing it, for the time spent with friends trying to find the rumoured Bigfoot Easter egg and going on insane crime sprees, for the incredible story and characters, and most importantly, for that damn train. GTA San Andreas is the greatest PlayStation 2 game of all time. What do you think of our top PS2 games? If you think we're missing any, be sure to let us know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe to UNILAD Gaming on YouTube for more great gaming content.